in a minute. Now?
Are we live now?
You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in extremely busy and chaotic Northport, Florida. I am breathing heavy because I've had quite the day, but I will promise you this. I kept my speed under control, and it's Friday. Remember to do that on your way home. Let's everyone not go to the hospital. Let's not have any traumas tonight. Let's have a great weekend and keep everybody safe. Slow down and take your time. Peter Bartalotta is in the house.
How you doing? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good. Beautiful day out there, isn't it?
It is absolutely a beautiful day. And you know what? I want to say you had a thought years back about Northport being a type of medical community. And with the hospital coming along, do you see more of the potential growth today for physicians relocating into our area along with other types of medical type of businesses?
Well, sure. You know, when you get a hospital, you're going to get all of the support pieces. 1 second, let me turn this off.
And the lotto has been won.
You're going to get all the support that comes with it. Doctors' offices, radiologists, you know, everybody,
chronology.
There you go. Thank you. That all comes with a hospital. What I was talking about back in the day with Northport being a medical city of the future, most people would say, what do you mean by that? And what I envisioned was certainly a hospital. I actually envisioned a teaching hospital. I saw manufacturing of medical instruments. I saw telemedicine facilities. And we were actually talking to some firms where I think it was Englewood Hospital, used telemedicine for stroke or, you know, brain injured patients in a trauma. And the way it was done is the brain surgeon was, I think it was North Carolina at the time. And they had instruments and technology that they could he could see the sweat on the brow of the patient. And he was instructing the docs on what to do in those critical moments. Well, why couldn't we build something like that here? You can handle trauma all over the world. You know, you're talking with Englewood this morning, and tonight they're talking to somebody in Australia. And it's a way to get the expertise in those critical trauma victim situations that 5 or 10 minutes can mean the difference between life and death. And a life that is more livable. And most of the doctors and the surgeons that we have can handle it, but they need to be guided. So it was an interesting concept. We spoke. We had some interest in coming here to Northport. But, of course, to do that, you'd better have high-speed internet. You'd better have the right infrastructure to support something like that. Can you imagine if your internet goes down or it's slowing down and you're talking to a guy and it's a brain operation going on? It's like, wait a minute. So, you know, what we were envisioning is medical technology and procedures of the future and applying them here in Northport. Naturally, a hospital is critical to it, but we saw something different because you're going to get that medical growth. I don't care. Any hospital comes in, you're going to get it surrounding it. It comes with the turf. We used to say in the economic development side, we'd say create catalysts that generate economic metabolism. And that's what a hospital does. It's a catalyst. And when it's built, it brings in all this other stuff. that's needed to support that hospital, all the experts and the specialists and what have you. That's um, the metabolism. We don't have the catalyst. When we do, we'll get the metabolism. But we were going a step further. We were going into the high tech side, and really redefining what a medical community might look like.
Well, and I'm going to throw something at you because we've had a lot of changes within the medical community itself. Telehealth has come a long way since COVID. I don't know that they were prepared for that when the pandemic hit, but we certainly rallied really, really fast to make that a working component for patient care around the world, around big time around the world. But there's another side of the industry that is now playing out with the 3D printer and different things like that are out there that certainly turned corners for a lot of the medical device companies out there. Um, part of our, I think part of our strategy here is to really push for the high speed internet, because you have to kind of have the high speed internet to do a lot of the things that you're talking about, along with the fact that you want high speed internet if you're going to do anything at the critical level of I think getting information out. You need sound infrastructure. And
Absolutely. And I
yeah,
think,
go ahead.
I want to welcome Kevin. We've been talking about this since 2012. And one point he makes is the commissioners need to be more bold. And I come back to, it all starts with the plan. If you want to be the medical city of the future, then define it, and then go backwards and say, what do I need to be there? And then build it. Don't build infrastructure for the sake of building infrastructure. Build it for a reason, and then follow that whole process through. And that's the value of planning. The planning tells you where you want to be, and then it starts to lay out the roadwork that you need to get there. And I still feel we don't have that vision. We don't have that. We're not being bold in our vision, and we should be. We're a great city. We're talking about stuff that is small stuff. The issues are small issues. We're not talking about the big picture stuff. I'd like to see more of that.
Well, and you talk about the boldness of it all, and we also have to be creative with what we're doing on the scale of getting these companies to even look our direction. I think the biggest thing that's going to change is the interchange at Toledo Blade in 75. When that gets enhanced, that's going to change. When the hospital does go in, it's going to add a completely different flavor to a city that has been, I got to tell you, probably in dire needs of a hotel, that too, by the way, a hospital for the last 20 years. And I know that the effort that has gone into trying to bring this here is off the charts. And it's kind of strange how it worked out with the fact that they opened at Laurel Road, and at the same time they opened at Laurel Road, Venice Hospital shut down. So it's actually put more of a strain on the system that's in place. And I don't know if planning would have changed that, but if they would have changed that infrastructure around and built it in Northport first, would Venice have stayed open and been able to transition into something else later or a different location? There's and I know you as the business guy, and also you've been involved with this for so long. Is there a strategy behind the bed controls that they put in place for the state?
What do you mean the bed controls?
Well, the amount of beds that are allowed to go in throughout, there is a control for that. There's only so many beds allowed to be permitted, and we kind of, as we built at Laurel Road and they shut down, we went negative on the bed placement.
Okay, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the certificate of use, which is what they had to get back in the day, has been eliminated. And that's when they would evaluate the number of beds and how many beds we needed and what this would bring, et cetera. That's, you don't need to do that anymore, I don't think. And with that, I think went the bed issue. So if you want to open up a hospital, go for it. But I'll tell you what I mean, though. The mistake you make is if you think we've got to come up with all the ideas and the companies. That's the mistake. We need to put messages out. So let me take a hypothetical situation. Let's say we're in a meeting and we decide that Northport wants to be the medical city of the future. So we define it in a certain way. Now, Vision Northport, back in the day, you'll remember we used to put a weekly newsletter out and we had a survey. And one of the survey questions was, how would you, is economic development important to you? And something like 90% of the people said yes. Then we asked them, how much would you be willing to pay extra in taxes for economic development? And the numbers range from $0 to $100. Over 60% said $100. That's $2.5 million a year based on 25,000 households. It's more now. Can you imagine putting a message out that says this is what Northport is going to become, and the residents are behind it to the tune of $2.5 million a year in additional funding? Any interested parties out there? The phones will be ringing off the hook. How many times have you seen on the news a community willing to spend that kind of money every year? That's a newsworthy story. That winds up on national news. That national news gets the attention of companies, and it causes them to call. And when they call, if you've got the right story to tell, you start inviting them down and you start to develop that strategy. That's what needs to be done. It's not just saying it and then moving on to the next project. And, I think we're in a situation right now where I'm not sure where that planning comes from. If you talk to staff, and they're rightly so when they say it, you say, what's the plan? And they'll tell you it's the master plan. Well, if anybody here has read a master plan, it's great reading if you have trouble sleeping at night. It'll put you to sleep in 5 minutes. It's 3-inch binders and it's filled with code and what have you. I'm talking about a picture visual that somebody could read, very quickly, and it tells a story and it's got pretty pictures on what it's going to look like in the future. That's the vision piece that I'm talking about. That's how you bring people to the table to get involved, because people want to see something happen. And you got to define it very clearly, and you've got to educate people, and Northport Forward's doing a great job with that. But then I watch the commission and we get bogged down in stuff that's little stuff in the scheme of the big picture. I see staff involved in little stuff as compared to the big picture. And until you put the resources towards getting to that point, you're not going to get there. It's just talk. And we've been hearing this for years now.
Well, we have, and it's amazing that we've gone from hearing it about it for years to actually feeling like we finally have a step forward. Now, the groundbreaking is not until 2025 at Sumter and 75, but even the structure of Sumter and 75 is going to have to change when you put a hospital in there. I got to believe that we're going to have to look at some infrastructure updates at that exit also, which will also change those other corners of that marketplace. We've already got Toledo Blade that is projected to have a 75 and interchange update at Toledo Blade. So I have a feeling we're going to get both of our exits right now, Sumter and Toledo Blade, with complete upgrades as far as access on northbound and southbound and off northbound and southbound. And isn't that going to change the flow of traffic and really, I think, help with the ease of opening other businesses, whether it be the medical side of things or not? It's going to open up that infrastructure and let business flow happen.
Well, yeah, but what we're doing is, to me, that's not planning. That's reacting. All of a sudden we need, River Road. How long have we been talking about River Road? Got to expand it. In comes Mattamy Homes, West Villages, and all of a sudden you've got the right people talking to the right people, and you get the expansion. And they're ahead of the curve, not behind it. We got to get ahead of the curve, and you got to start with who is Northport. What are we? If we're a bedroom community, then let's say it. Let's get off the duff and just say it. That's what we are, and these are the expectations you can have as a resident of Northport. You'll have a quality of life, you'll have parks, you'll have all this good stuff. It's going to cost because we don't have the commercial base to subsidize, so it's just going to find its way into your wallet in one way or another. It'll be a special taxing district. They'll come up with creative ways of creating taxes because the bills have to be paid. But that's not a plan. That's reacting to, we're reacting to a hospital, and we're getting another one in West Villages. They're going to have one too. And according to the president of Sarasota Memorial, they're going to start them almost simultaneously. So, we're just being where every other community of our size is.
And Chuck brought something up, and I want to kind of address this with you because I was part of the incubator that you had before, and we did a lot of things and a lot of good with the organization. But would you consider Northport Forward a replacement for that, or is Northport Forward? Because I kind of feel like it could be considered a spin-off, but it's not as full blown as what we had before.
Yeah, I think there is a distinct difference. And Bill, it did not take the place of Vision Northport. The need that was identified by the founders of that organization was we have a community that is not educated on the facts. A lot of it was social media and all of people's opinions, and what they set out to do was to educate and inspire the people, but to give them factual information that we can make decisions on. And I think they're doing a great job of that. Just to evidence this past Wednesday, they had an open meeting with Jerome Fletcher there, the city manager, his staff, all the commissioners were there. And the audience could ask questions directly right there. Boom. And they were giving them answers. So it was, it's that kind of a role that Northport Forward plays. Vision Northport was a visionary role. It said, what do you want to see in your city? And we gave the members a way to participate in developing that. And as you recall, we developed plans. We had architectural renderings. We had cost factors. We brought all the right people to the table to help us flush out the idea. We had a lot of ideas that never went anywhere. but some...
Isn't that what an incubator type program does, though?
Yeah.
It's really engaging sometimes the community itself as a whole. And I remember a lot of the weeks that we spent really firing up the community. They weren't really supposed to be just talking points to go nowhere. They were supposed to be talking points to get everybody talking and to get everybody engaged. And I think that what's missing today is we have a select group of people that are engaged. whether you like them or not, whether you agree with them or not, they're engaged. Okay. Kudos, they're engaged. But they're also not looking at the picture in totality. They take their slice of the pie and they look at what they want and they cram it in, and they've got just enough support that because the rest of us are not paying attention, things get turned over and things get done. And that's where I have a problem with the slice of the pie not being big enough. And of course they just want their number to be just enough to keep their power, because if people haven't realized this yet, power is everything. And when you get a group of people in a city that has control because they got the power of the vote and they got the power to produce numbers, they really want to dumb everybody else down. They don't want to be inclusive. And that's the reality of it all. But Northport Forward is trying on a much higher level to get people engaged so that they're part of it, so that they're not looking for ways of finding information through hours of search. You can actually give them what you want to know and they'll do the research. They'll provide you all the neutral information, and you'll have one source to go get everything that you needed to research done. Mm-hmm. So you can go vote and you can actually do it the right way.
Yeah. And when I look back, people have asked me, why didn't Vision Northport succeed? And it wasn't me. It wasn't my organization.
Right.
I was a board member. I was very out in the public, I guess you could say. So I became more of a face for it, but nothing was done because I wanted it done. It was done because a board was doing it. And the members came up with their ideas. We didn't have any ideas. We had members come up with ideas. We had equestrian facilities. We had dining facilities that were really creative. We had a lot of different people coming up with ideas. No one person could have come up with the number of ideas we came up with. That was that diverse. And John, you were there. I'm telling the truth.
Yes. 100%.
Where I think we made a mistake is we didn't get involved and give our position. And a lot of people say, don't get involved in politics. Well, today, if you talk to a politician, you're involved in politics. You can't. So, and I'm not saying taking a political position, but if the city is doing something right, give them kudos. If the city is doing something wrong, we've got an obligation to the members to let them know this is the wrong way to go. Okay. But people don't want to do that because they don't want to get in the middle. So what happens is the dialogue doesn't go anywhere. It just kind of sits. Okay, Bill is saying he's got a solution for the lack of so-called non-participation of the entire community. Diversity of perspective is where you find solutions. Bill, what we used to say at Vision Northport is it was a forum for dialogue. That's all we created. I wish you were here when we did it. People would come in. We didn't know what the heck the topic was going to be that night. It came from the floor.
Right. We used to split up. Now talk about this. Here, I think there's clarity and there's clarity. And literally we would walk in and we would write down different topics, and then we would break into groups and talk about those different topics, and then share back at the end of the night, and then gather more information about those topics again with everybody's involvement.
And it was interesting. This was the I think he might have been the president at the time, David Waring. He was the Publix manager on Toledo and Price.
Correct.
And David would run the meeting, and he did this beautifully. I can't do it anywhere close to what he would do. He would open it up by saying, okay, who's got an idea? What would you like to see in Northport? And then we'd have a board and we'd write them down. More restaurants, more, something to do with horses, canoe races, more baseball field, whatever it was. And we'd come up with a list of maybe 10 items that the group that night, that group wanted to talk about. And then we would vote, and whichever one seemed that you wanted to participate in, you'd raise your hand, and we'd pick 3. And those 3, we split them up into 3 tables, and they would discuss, put a little more meat to it on what they wanted and what the next steps might be. And some of the ideas would falter right there at the table. Others would say, we've expanded it, and this is what we think it could look like, but they never did a follow-up. And a couple of them actually called another meeting and got together. And out of those groups actually came many finished products that we delivered and gave to the city. So there was no agenda. We didn't know what the subjects were going to be. I think it was one of the most exciting nights for me every month. I loved the ideas people came up with. It was just great. It was a wonderful format.
It was, and tell where that format came, and then we're going to get off of this subject, because the truth of the matter is it was great for its time, and the time has passed that group because it's no longer here. And no. Northport Forward is really not trying to take that reign, but a portion of that reign, and try to get people information they need for the critical side of the thinking of how am I going to vote and why am I going to vote this way?
Yep.
And other topics that are happening out there. And there's just such a value in information. And there's such a thing as being an uneducated community, and that's why they don't vote. And I think that's the drive for Northport Forward, is they're trying to get the information out to get people to engage in the vote, because we can't have 1,800 people out of 82,000 picking and choosing what we do here. We have got to get ourselves in line, in lockstep of just get out of the vote. However the vote goes, if we were getting 50% of the vote out and we were having these conversations, at least we're talking about 50%. But we're not doing that on a regular basis. And it's really because lack of information going out and lack of community engagement from a working class who spends a lot of time, not just on the road, because we drive away to go to work. We spend a lot of time helping other people. We spend a lot of time with youth organizations. And by the time they get home at the end of the night, where the rest of us were going to Vision Northport before and staying until 11 o'clock at night at family table and doing it on a regular routine basis, we wore ourselves out because we couldn't get it to begin even grow bigger and more powerful. And we've talked about that in the past. And I want you to spend like 2 minutes to wrap this topic up, and then we're going to slide into something else that I think is going to be another hot topic for you.
Okay, so let me answer Kevin's question. What would you do with Warm Mineral Springs?
And that's where I was going to go. How about that?
Oh, good timing. So, understand the history to Warm Mineral Springs. It was privately owned. When I came here in 1993, I think a guy's name was Sam Herron owned it. It was privately owned. Then Ed Ullman bought it. And Ed had some great visions for it, but no money. And then he went into Chapter 11 or bankruptcy. And Gene Vaccaro came in, his company came in and had Gene manage the property. And then the city and the county bought it for economic development. That's what its primary purpose was, and why they purchased it. So the idea was that, some type of a resort facility that would generate revenue to the city and the county. The city and the county couldn't come to an agreement on the use of the property and the plans, so the county basically sold it back, their share back to Northport, and Northport's owned it ever since. people talk about developers coming in and commissions are in the pocket of developers. And I can stand here and tell you, if you think a commissioner is in a developer's pocket, prove it or shut your mouth, because you're hurting good people out there. And I don't think any of them are in the pocket of a developer. True developers give them money to run their campaigns because it costs money. To be a commissioner in Northport, you better have anywhere from $7,000 or $8,000 on up to 15 just to run. That's how much it costs to run a campaign. So yeah, they reach out, but I don't know of anybody that can be bought for $100 check. It's not like they're not buying the house for them. It's just crazy. So what's happening now is people are rallying up against it. We've got one unsolicited proposal that's been submitted. Now they've got it open to additional people, and who knows who's going to present that and present a solution. But if they can't come to an agreement, they've got a choice. They can either shut it down or use taxpayers' money to manage it. I, for one, as a taxpayer, don't want to see my money spent on War Mineral Springs. We've already spent $5.5 million. It does not make money. They're now admitting it. 2 years ago, they were denying it, but it doesn't make money because they don't have enough money to repair the buildings that are there. They've got $10 million reserved, and it's going to cost 18 or 20 million to do it. So that's why they're going out with a public-private partnership and saying to somebody out there, can somebody work with us to get through this picture? So, get the facts on what happened. And stop condemning people for being in the pockets of the developers. It's either that. At this point, I say shut the whole thing down, put a fence around it, and shut it down. Make it little Salt Springs. Have people come in and go diving in it for the artifacts. But I don't need to spend my taxpayers' money on $20 million worth of buildings over there. So you either get a partner to help you, or you're going to have the voters are going to be totally against it, because not many Northport residents go there. Most of it is people living in the Springs area, and that's Sarasota County. They don't even pay taxes to Northport.
Well, and to Chuck's point, the way they've got it set up, War Mineral Springs does hit a profit. The problem with that theory is there's still money to be spent on it yet to bring it really up to where it needs to be.
Yeah, let me answer Bill's point though. It makes money, Bill, because they don't spend any money there. Well, guess what? It came home to bite them in the butt. The money they've been putting aside, that $9 or $10 million, was supposed to take care of the building repairs. They didn't take care of the building repairs. Now it's going to cost them $18 or $20 million. So it doesn't make enough money to support itself. And people that say that don't understand. They just haven't been fixing the toilets. They haven't been fixing the buildings. And now the buildings are they're literally worthless. The hurricane finally took it out.
Well, we still haven't even run the water down through Ortiz yet, have we?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure of it. I don't think so.
I don't believe we have, and that's part of the problem too, is updating the infrastructure to War Mineral Springs has got to happen, and then each and every building there has to be redone and brought into. I'm not even sure I want to say current permitting, because I don't think they can, but they can be historically brought back. But there was also funding. They were looking for funding to do that and trying to figure all that out. But it's, I don't understand how we can project it to make money when we spent so much money to get it, but we're not counting that as part of the payback.
Yeah.
For the budget, we're just saying it makes money. Well, if you want to give me $1 million, my business right now, I can tell you I make money at it, and I'd love to have $1 million. So it's anybody can put anything into a budget they want you to see and hear. And the reality is, are they disclosing it all? That's my question. Are we? And he says you're absolutely correct. Lack of the follow through by the city um, and biting them in the ass, uh, like the drainage infrastructure. Well, we could go across the board. I don't know that we're the only city out there that needs a lot of this stuff done, and I know we're not. But it seems like we get started, we start pulling the trigger on things, and then election happens and things get kind of switched around and maneuvered, and and I know that Kevin Roush had said something about that before. Politics is politics, but there's how many different plans has there been for Warm Mineral Springs, Peter?
I'd say probably 6 or 7.
How many of them are similar?
Well, they got 2 or 3 back in the day with the when they were asking for proposals from the development community. Then then the city decided to go and get somebody to manage it for them. That really wasn't a plan. That was just a short term, decision to until we can figure something out. And then Kimley Horn, I think, has done at least 2 or more studies and proposals, but their proposals are based on what the city commission wants. I mean, the commissioners are the ones that told them they want to see a tower, an observation tower. But for what? If you've ever been to Warm Mineral Springs, what are you observing? So the commission is giving direction to the study, and you get what you pay for. And Kevin brought up this community involvement. And what Kimberly Horn does is they bring you in a room and then they hand out yellow sticky boards and they tell you to write down what your thoughts are and stick it in different sections of the walls. And then they compile all of that and give a report back. Look at that versus, and somebody brought up before, Babcock Ranch. When Sid Kitson started doing the planning for the ranch, when he brought the public together, he would say, this is what we are thinking of. And you saw a downtown, you saw, graphic designs and architectural renderings of what he was looking for. And then he said, what do you think about this? And most people, when they saw that, were excited. Then he said, what would you do to add to it? And people were making changes right then and there on the spot. You got to start a meeting by saying, this is what we're thinking. But we get responses like, I think because I'm a Sarasota resident, I should, pay half price. And then you get people say, well, I'm a Sarasota resident and a Northport resident, so I should get in for free. And those are the answers we were getting on the board. Why can't I bring my lunch in? So there was no revenue produced at the spring. It was just the admission. And we never got good ideas out of that, to preserve it. Preservation is wonderful, but it costs. Somebody has to maintain it. And that's dollars come from the residents. And it did not support the buildings and the overall operation of the Springs. As successful as they want to say it was, why didn't they fix the buildings with it then? Why didn't they take that $10 million and go in and fix it and fix the sewer? You talk about preservation and your leach fields around there and your septics are leaking into everything. It's dirty.
And that, I hate to say it, but that is a major problem here today on land and in the Gulf, because all of the things that we're talking about there go out to the Gulf and feed the red tide beast. And we hear all the chatter, we hear all of the complaints about red tide and how it's not just destroying Florida, but it's destroying the economic growth along the coastline. When you have to listen in to see whether it's a good day to go to the beach or not because of red tide, I don't, and I've asked this question. Charlotte County has a standard set now that every 4 years a septic tank has to be certified. And we are not doing that here, and we're not doing that at the county level, because if we were, a lot of those houses that were there would either be voting on the sewer system to be put in, or they would be replacing the septic tanks. And a lot of them would sell because a lot of them can't afford to do it. But at the same time, we can't afford to let our land continue to contribute to the demise of the Gulf. And
I hear you.
Go ahead. I mean, because there is something to be said about correcting Warm River Springs at the same time, understanding the damage that's happening, because we're not looking at the totality of the area.
Yeah, and and I want to respond to Bill's comment. When they start doing bonds for the drainage system and the developer doesn't have to pay, only the taxpayer does for the bonds. Well, that is the way it is, guys. I'm sorry. Developers are going to go where there's water and sewer. So if you don't have water and sewer, you won't get the expanded tax base that they bring with it, a tax base that will pay taxes for the rest of eternity. So you make the investment to attract people. It's not a developer's job to put that in. So if you want to keep it the way it is, and you want the population to stay where it is, 82,000, whatever it is, then let's get a vote on that. Let's get the resident or bring in commissioners that'll do that, and put the roadblocks up. Nobody can come in anymore. We're all happy. Our roads aren't crowded. Okay. But guess what? It still costs the city to run the garbage trucks, the police, and everything else for the 82,000, and they're not generating enough to pay for it all.
We're just
so what is the solution, Bill? What's the solution to not attracting an alternative revenue base? And that's what they're doing when they do this. They're not in bed with developers. Developers have lots of places they can go.
Yeah, we're not the last location.
No.
And I just had this conversation Monday, and I believe we're at 8% on our commercial. And Mayor Langdon said we need to be reaching in that 20% range or better. And if we don't start paying attention to that number and start getting that corrected, we're going to be going down a path that we're not going to be able to afford to live here because of the tax dollars.
That's right.
So, there's something to be said about growth the right way, growth controlled, and growth that you have to survive. And you have to find a happy medium. And I feel like there's times where we get it, and there's other times where we go, no, we're all right. And it seems like every election cycle, everybody shuts it down and says, well, I don't want to talk about it right now. Let's talk about it after the election. Well, we have elections every 2 years. And when you shut down a conversation, that's why people are not engaged. Now, go ahead and start having to increase people's tax dollars on their house and find out how fast you're going to change, because we actually saw that in Welland Park, where the tax dollars are where they're targeting, even though they're paying $10,000 a year in fees to live there. They can't get rid of those costs. What is the only thing you could possibly go after would be tax dollars. But if you take away, and I did ask this question, take away Welland Park, what's the demise of the rest of Northport? And it's not funny how many decades it would take the rest of us to dig out of a hole because a selfish group of people wanted to do something like that.
And keep in mind, when we put land in preservation, and I'm all in favor of that, by the way. I'm not against it. But when you put land in preservation, that land is now off the tax rolls. Government doesn't pay taxes. So, and we're putting land in preservation, a lot of it. We put Orange Hammock in, we got Deep Prairie Creek in it, the Carlton Preserve. Now they just put another couple of 100 acres off the Mayaca. So that's tax revenue that we don't see. So my challenge, Bill, is let's set up a meeting with the environmental groups and the pro-economic groups, and let's sit down. I'm sure we're not that far off. And how do we peacefully coexist and meet both of our objectives?
I
I
agree.
think we need to do that.
I agree. Um, I'm going to ask these two because they're pushing the topics out here. I've got about 5 to 7 minutes left. Is there another topic that either one of you would like to put on the table to see if we can hatch that out in the next 5 to 7 minutes? Because Wormhole Springs was brought into it. We've talked about Northport Forward. We've talked about Vision Northport, the history there. We talked about the history of Wormhole Springs itself and how that transitioned. Uh, there's something to be said about all of these topics being poured into a 55-minute show, and understanding that if you don't get involved, if this conversation doesn't make you understand that these things grab a hold and they change, they grab a hold and they change. If the citizens aren't involved and they're not on task, they're not changing to what you want. They're changing because you're not looking and you're not involved. And because you're not involved, your town is going to change, and you're going to blink and wake up one day and go, why did that happen? Citizens have to start looking at themselves too, don't they, Peter?
Yeah. And look, Northport Forward is putting out some educational meetings. Go to one. They're going to have them in your neighborhoods. Get on their website, find out when it is, register. It's free, and get to meet your elected officials and hear what they're doing, and ask them, what is the future of Northport? Tell me what my city is going to look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and what are you doing to get us there? Because it's two ways. You got the people have to get involved, but you also have to have a government that is proactive and is listening to the people and actually doing something. Listening is one thing. If you don't do anything, if there's no action related to it, then you're just preaching to the gospel sort of thing. So both sides need to be working together, and we both have obligations. And you know me, I'm one that the city's obligation to me is tell me where I'm going, tell me your plan. Then I can make a decision. Do I want to live here or do I not want to live here?
And go ahead and read the comment by Chuck and see what you have to say about that.
He says he would truly enjoy debate anytime as it relates to the health, safety, and welfare of a natural environment, the foundation of our existence. We can do it right here live next month.
Next month.
I'm happy. I'm okay with it. Bring on your environmental groups and invite whoever you want. And I'll stand here with John. I think John shares some of my thoughts, but and Kevin, and let's see what happens.
Here's the thing. I've got 10 links that I can send out for a show. Chuck, I know that you don't have a lot of the internet capabilities that I have. I will work that out with you. If you want to come on the show, you and I will sit next to each other and we'll do this thing together and we'll have a good time. But if you've got people, let's talk. Let's have coffee. I'm on a short window this week, but my phone does work and we can definitely do it. He said he's in 42 groups. So 42 groups, there should be enough people to get involved to have an open dialogue on air. And the beautiful thing about this, though, and I want you guys to hear this, the beautiful thing about Realtalk and StreamYard, no one's going to overtalk themselves because I can shut it down. I can mute people. This truly is going to be a forum. If we do this, it's going to be a form of professionalism. And that's exactly where we're going to go. And we're going to keep this positive as far as moving forward and keeping things directed at topic on hand. And I got to tell you, none of us, we've all met and been around each other. We're not taking personal pot shots at anybody. Who we take personal pot shots at is our own community for lack of involvement. And that's okay, because if it's the wake up call that our community needs, little shots like that are okay, but it's not personal. Am I telling the truth there, Peter?
Yeah, I just think you need to have both sides represented and listen to both sides. And then, but the goal should be, how do we work together? What are our common, our forefathers, when they put this country together, understand that that debate is good. But out of debate should come some kind of compromise, that you find a middle of the road where everybody can live. And that's where your solutions come from. So how do we do that? And it all starts with a discussion. It starts with talking to each other, not on Facebook. I mean, Facebook, the problem I have with Facebook is somebody puts out a position, somebody comes back and rejects it and attacks it, and that person disappears. You can't, wait a minute. How do you respond to what that person just said? So I don't listen to Facebook anymore because it doesn't resolve anything. It just is, it's becoming a place for you to complain. But there's no solutions. No solutions. And I'm a solutions guy.
And I hate to do this, but we need to get off the air because I was late last week, but we're going to put this together. So guys, I appreciate you. Chuck, we'll definitely be talking, and we'll put this thing together. And next month, the fourth Friday next month, we will definitely throw this out there, and hopefully we'll have 10 people on board. And good. Chuck, I need your help. Kevin needs your help. And Peter, look forward to it, buddy.
Okay. Have a good one, guys.
All right, buddy.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
This is John Rawlings with Peter Bartalotta saying thanks. Have a great night. Drive safe and just take your time. There's no reason to cause an accident. Bye-bye now.